You're listening to the House Hacking Podcast, the blueprint for one of the best financial life hacks there is. House hacking. If you are looking to get ahead financially or learn about the easiest way to get started with real estate investing, then you are in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of individuals from all walks of life that use house hacking to eliminate their housing costs and accelerating their path to financial independence. Your number one place for all things house hacking.
Ayush, man, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. I mean, where are you calling in from for folks that don't know you and haven't heard your story yet?
Yeah. Hey, Andrew. So excited to be on the show. I am in New Orleans, Louisiana. Not too far from you.
Yeah, we're right down the road. So Ayush and I do coffee a couple of times a month and plan to do some beers too once COVID dies down a little bit more. So, for folks that don't know your background and sort of, give us this high level summary of, your story. How'd you get to where you're at now and what sort of got you on this path of house hacking?
Yeah. So I'm from India and I went to med school in India, trained over there, then moved to the US in 2013. I did my residency in New York and I trained in Michigan after that. And I moved down to New Orleans in 2019. And as a lot of medical professionals, you finish your training, which is a long training, and then you want to buy a house. Honestly, moving down over here, I was doing the same thing, trying to look at single family houses for myself. And then COVID hit and everything was shut down. There was no opportunities to go see houses. But one of the things that I used to do in my off time before COVID was travel a lot. But now there was no travel. So I took that time and got into educating myself about financial independence. Then I came across some physician courses that I did and then decided that instead of buying a single family house, I think it makes sense to me to start investing in real estate. And that's how I started house hacking.
Awesome. I mean, so you came from India and then you ended up in New York. So was this New York City or like New York State?
New York City. I remember 2013 in July when I landed over here, I had an address and I have $100 on my phone. The moment I turned my phone on, it connected to data and my entire $100 was lost. The address, I went to all the yellow cabs at the airport and they said, this address does not exist. And I had no idea where to go. So I was at the airport for around 2 hours trying to figure out how to get to that address. Could not call anybody. And a cab driver agreed to take me to the place. And I think he took me all over New York City. I saw New York City in one day. Landed up in Long Island. And then, trained in Brooklyn for 3 years. I was in Brooklyn basically for 4 years before moving to Michigan.
Awesome. And then what was your training? So you did the residency in Brooklyn, but what was the specialty you were interested in?
Yeah, I applied for pediatric residency. So I trained in pediatric in Brooklyn and then pediatric emergency in Michigan.
Awesome. And what made you want to actually look at pediatrics?
Oh, good question. So this story goes back to when I was in med school. And I remember there was a cancer patient that I used to see every day in my pediatric rotation as a medical student. And then one day I went back and she wasn't there. She seemed fine the day before. She had passed away the night before. So it just hit me that I could do something, make changes in anybody's life. And that just made me want to do pediatric.
One of the reasons. That's a touching story. Yeah. So, Brooklyn's a pretty fun place to be. I mean, especially there like 2013, 14, 15, it's starting to change and it's still hip and trendy and lots of restaurants and stuff coming up. And then, you said you like to travel. So the thing about New York is you can go anywhere in the world from New York. So, I mean, how was that 4 years there in New York City?
Um, Extremely cool. It wasn't the easiest transition. Imagine moving from India to New York City, and it was just a different world for me. I've never been to the US. I have never traveled outside India before that. And then I landed up in New York City. Um, it was challenging, but it was great. It was the best 3 4 years that I spent in the US. As much as people can be can be can be a little rude to you or a little short, but overall you make best friends in New York City. And the city itself has so much to offer. And you're 100% correct about travel. The airports are you can go anywhere in the world from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, New York can be a culture shock, if you're coming from parts of the US and you've never been to New York City. I mean, it's a huge, huge city. So, all right. So then you did New York, you ended up in Michigan. I mean, very different, New York City to where were you at in Michigan?
In a suburb of Detroit. And then I
Okay.
ended up living in Detroit for 1 year. So 3 years over there.
Awesome. And then what made you end up in New Orleans? Was it sort of this like lottery, applied for a bunch of places, or did you have multiple options to choose from?
Yeah. So after the East Coast and Midwest, I was done with the cold. I
Yeah.
have moved from India. It was hot and humid. And I decided that I'm only going to try to find jobs where it's warm. So I interviewed in some of the southern areas, California, and New Orleans just was a great city to be in. Like I've been here one time before my interview, and the vibe reminds me of Brooklyn. At the same time, it's warm. People are super nice. The job was great. A lot of good opportunities for me to grow as a young attending physician. And yeah, I took it. That was the first place that I said yes, I want a job, and yeah, it was great.
Awesome. So I know you had mentioned you'd taken a couple courses for physicians, but I mean, what was your mindset or your approach with money sort of before that? Was it, I mean, were you a big saver to begin with, or you sort of spent? And I mean, I know as residents, y'all don't make a whole lot of money to begin with, and then you're living in New York City, which is an expensive place. But I mean, just share a little bit about your money mindset on how things were, before COVID hit and you took those physician courses.
Yeah, when I was in residency and fellowship, you don't make a lot of money. And one of the drawbacks for physicians and anybody in medicine, whether it's a nurse or a pharmacist, is we study so much about our medical knowledge. We are not financially educated at all. We
Yeah.
don't get people coming in and talking to us about how to invest in real estate or invest in stocks or just save money. It's living paycheck to paycheck. And that's why most of the physicians or graduates after residency and fellowship, they come out, they want to buy a nice house, they want to buy a nice car, because we are like delaying our gratification a lot, and everybody thinks that that is the way to go. Um, in terms of my expenses during residency and fellowship, barely saved anything, to be honest. And then after becoming an attending, I was not a big just didn't spend a lot of money, nor I was on the other extreme of big saver. I was right in the middle. I think my travel definitely was a big expense.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with like travel. I mean, obviously, my wife and I love traveling, and that's where a lot of our money would go to. So, I mean, everyone has their thing, and I think it's better to spend money traveling than on a super fancy car. But I mean, I love the fact that you said, doctors spend so much time learning about medicine. They don't learn about personal finances. And years ago, when I was a loan officer, I noticed the same thing. The doctors would all come in and they would just have bigger and better toys and houses, but they would be, almost living paycheck to paycheck. They just have, a 4 or 5 times bigger salary than the other person that just came in, but they'd also have 4 or 5 times as much debt as the other person came in. So then, I mean, how did the courses come about? Was this like a bulletin board at the hospital? Were you just COVID, so you're spending more time reading online? I mean, how was this something the hospital actually offered, or you found something online that someone was offering?
Yeah, something online. This was a called Virtual Summit, and Peter Kim, he's an anesthesiologist from California. He had organized that, and in that basically you had, I think, 3 or 4 days of talks by physicians who have other streams of income, whether it be real estate, stocks, medical technology, a lot of options. And one of the talks was by this couple, Letty and Kenji, who have this course called Semi-Retired MD, and it was only for physicians at that point, but it was basically a 6 week just learning real estate and how to invest, calculating numbers. I had no idea about Bigger Pockets or any podcast at that point. Just taking that course every week, moving a step forward, kind of made me realize that, oh, there is an opportunity to invest my money into real estate rather than just spending into buying a house for myself.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think you would have, if you heard about their course a year earlier, would you have taken it? Or was this just, you're now an attending, COVID's hitting, like it came across at the right time?
Yeah, I think it came across at the right time. One of the big things in COVID that happened, which a lot of people don't know, that a lot of physicians actually lost jobs. It looks like the hospitals were extremely busy, but there were parts of the hospital which were busy, and a lot of other parts were not busy. So a lot of my friends, the physicians that I thought as my mentors, they were struggling with COVID because the hospitals had to cut down their hours and their salary had gone down. And I realized that those guys who were like 20, 30 years ahead of me could not pay their mortgage, and they were struggling because they were not getting a paycheck. So that definitely was a big factor in me deciding, no, I'm not going to buy a single family house for myself where I have to pay $3, $4, $5,000 mortgage a month. And what happens if I lose a job like COVID?
Yeah.
So definitely COVID was a big factor in me thinking about financial independence and thinking about investing in real estate.
Awesome. So, I mean, in their retired MD course, did they actually talk about house hacking, or did they just sort of really go into investing in real estate to build that income stream?
Yeah, they don't really talk about house hacking over there. The couple had done a house hacking and they have a blog post on it, but honestly, most of the people who are in the course are way further ahead of me in terms of their attending physician life. So they're like 5, 10, 15, maybe a few years into being an attending physician. So a lot of them, they don't want to do that, to be honest. They are very settled down already in their life, and they want to take that 20-25% down, pay it off from their usual W2 salary, and then invest in real estate. So that is what they primarily talked about.
Awesome. So then how did this house hacking come about? So, I mean, obviously they sort of put you on this path of thinking about real estate. You hadn't heard about Bigger Pockets at this point. So, how'd you go from there to think to now, like, oh, I need to do a house hack?
Yeah, it was just going through Google and just trying to learn and read a lot about real estate. One thing that puts, just for my own self, I'm like super persistent. So if I get into something, I'm going to read a lot about it. So I came across podcasts. I came across the House Hacking Success book by Craig Curlop. Read it. Initially, I was not looking to house hack. I was trying to buy a duplex first. And then the thing that changed was talking to a lender. And one of the things that a physician or a high income professional can get is a physician's loan or a special loan from a lender. So the lender came to me and she said, you can get a 0% down 700,000 loan for up to 4 units. And you don't have to pay a PMI. But it needs to be owner occupied. So that's when I started to read more about house hacking and what can I do in terms of owner occupied properties.
So it was sort of like reading, the book, The House Hacking Strategy, and the lender coming in, and it was just like, okay, all right, there's something here. This is a good idea now.
Exactly.
All right. So, I mean, I obviously know a lot of this story here, but so it started to make sense. with your physician salary, you could qualify for a big loan up to 4 units. And, this is what now, summertime of 2020?
Yeah, it was around May of 2020. Yeah.
And then how long did it take you to, look for a property? And was it, I'm going to do a 4 unit or 2 unit or any multifamily that I think can be a house hack is what we're really going to turn it into?
Yeah, initially I was looking at a duplex, a 2 unit property. And after the lender came up to me and she had told me that up to 4 units, so I expanded to up to 4 units. And um, I had seen 3 or 4 properties at that point, and it just didn't make sense. The numbers were not making sense. And one night I was about to go to work, and my girlfriend called me and she said, "You got to look at this property." And we looked at that, and the next day, I went to look at the property, and that's what I got.
Oh, so it's the girlfriend that found the good deal for you.
She did, yeah, 100%.
Awesome. So, I mean, you mentioned something there, and I just want to dig into it. You said you were looking at duplexes, but the numbers just weren't making sense. So why were they not making sense for you?
So the area that I was looking at in New Orleans at that point was in an expensive neighborhood. So the duplexes were selling for around $350,000-$400,000, and honestly, I didn't know how to calculate numbers really well at that time. I'm definitely better now, but just looking at those numbers, I was seeing that I might be cutting down my rent a little bit, but I'll still be paying rent. And the numbers made a lot more sense when it's more than 2 units, when it's triplex or a fourplex. The numbers made a lot more sense. So yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah, and you're very right. A duplex, it's hard to break even. You still might have some amount you got to pay towards the mortgage. Your housing costs can be reduced, but when you start to look at that triplex or a quad, that's where you can really come in. So, I mean, you really wanted to make it so you had 0 living costs.
Exactly. That's correct.
Awesome. All right. So the girlfriend found this good property. You went and looked at it. Let's dive in. I mean, the property's in New Orleans. Is it in New Orleans proper? Is it out in the suburbs? What was it listed for? Let's just start to go through some of that process.
Yeah. So the property is in New Orleans proper in I would say an A-class neighborhood. It was a fourplex. It was funny when I went to see the property. It was on the market for 12 hours, and there were 7 groups of people walking to see the property. It was people were there were a lot of people, is what I can say. I saw the property. I told my realtor I like it a lot. Went back. It was listed at $695,000, 4 units. We put in an offer for $685. They accepted $690, and then we locked the property in at that point. So within 1 hour, we had put in the offer. Within 12 hours, we locked the property.
Yeah. And, you said A-class property, or A-class area. It's the Garden District for anyone that's familiar. I'd say it's an A-plus area, historic home. It's a killer property. Very historic front. You walk by and you're like, this is a New Orleans home. It's awesome. So you ended up at 690. And it's crazy. There's 7 groups of people there, and this is in summer in the middle of COVID. And, it's in some areas, COVID really devastated the economy. And then other places, it just with real estate, it tightened up inventory. So you're having multiple people look at properties. And then obviously multifamily is pretty hot. So, you had within 12 hours, saw it, made an offer on it, got it locked at 690. So had you put in any other offers on property yet? Or was this sort of the first property where it made sense you're putting in an offer and you get it under contract?
This was the first property that we put an offer in, and the first property we got under contract. Yes.
Ooh, that's some good beginner's luck right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we were very aggressive.
All right.
That kind of helped us a lot.
So did you list in your offer that you're a physician, or did your realtor say, hey, my client's actually a physician? Do you think that helped sort of make your offer strong, even though you were coming in below list price?
Yeah, my realtor did mention in the initial offer and contract that I'm a physician. I'll be taking a physician's loan, and the bank has pre-approved me of that loan. So we had the papers from the bank going in to the seller when we were putting in the offer, and also the next day with the contract.
I love this. I mean, I think everyone, if you really spend the time looking, you can have something as like this unique advantage or sort of like a unique selling point. I mean, for you, you had no experience. This was the first property you're buying, but you were able to leverage the fact that, hey, I'm pre-qualified and I have a physician loan. So even though it wasn't an all cash offer, you were still able to find something to leverage. And that's awesome. All right. So how long was your contract for? And let's sort of talk about what came up during your sort of due diligence period.
So the contract was 60 days, 15 days for inspection, 60 days for closing. We had an appraisal clause, we had an inspection clause. We did the inspection, and we found out that this is as you said, a historical New Orleans home. There's definitely stuff which needed some work. And then I went back to the seller and asked for around $45,000 of discount based on the repairs that needed. The roof was a little old. There were parts of the HVAC that needed change, and some other cosmetic changes. The seller and I went back and forth on that, and we decided 20,000. So apart from coming down 5,000 the price, we did get 20,000 and another 5,000 later on. So 25,000 on after the due diligence and the inspection. One
Awesome.
of the other things that also happened was it was right in the middle of COVID. So the lenders were getting more and more strict on the physician's loan or a portfolio loan. And around a month and a half into working on it, the lender said that they cannot do the physician loan. So that point, I had an option of either to just give up the property or try for some other lenders. And I think I called at least 50 people in 2 days, 50 lenders in 2 days, and try to figure it out to and figure what is the best way to get into this property, because I knew the numbers made sense. And at that point, I was invested in it a lot, I think emotionally too. So I used to walk around over there all the time and be like, oh, this is going to be my building. So I think those things made me go. I was super persistent. And I think that kind of helped to figure out an FHA loan at that point.
Well, I love the fact that you just didn't give up and you're like, nah, I'm just going to call as many people as I can in like 2 days. And then you figure it out, someone that was like, oh, we can do an FHA loan. So, all right. So you said it's a 4-unit, but how many bedrooms and bathrooms were in each of the units, and were all 4 units occupied?
Yeah, all 4 units were occupied with long-term tenants. Each unit is 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom. They are the 2 of the bottom units are like New Orleans shotgun style house. And then each unit was being rented at that time for around $1,500. So there were 3 units for $1,500 and 1 for $1,375. And all of this was way below market rent.
So, I mean, you looked at it in the sense of like, okay, if I live in it, there's 3 other units. Even if nothing happens, that's $4,500 a month of income. And, my guess is a mortgage, even with an FHA, you're what, 4 or 5 grand is what an estimated mortgage payment would be with your taxes and insurance on the property?
Yeah, it was $4,300 exactly.
So, I mean, you already knew going in like, oh, I can't give up because I would be essentially living for free. I mean, you'd have to put some money aside for maintenance and CapEx and stuff like that. But I mean, $4,500 with below market rents and in a great part of town, and your mortgage would be below that. I mean, that's awesome. So,
yeah.
Did you understand at that point, like the 1% rule, the 2% rule, how to do deal analysis and look at, including CapEx, or was this just sort of like simple back of the napkin math of like, hey, $4,500 a month in rent, $4,300 total mortgage payment, this will make sense?
Yeah, a little bit of it was data analysis. A lot of it was back of napkin math. As much as I wanted to be um, very good with my numbers, a lot of it was learning as I was going along the process, learning a lot every day, especially after buying the property. I think a lot of things changed after buying. You can go through 100 courses, but I think the learning grows, it is exponential once you actually own something and you are in it.
Yeah, you got to get that firsthand experience. So the property, you ended up with a 25,000 concession. You had the FHA loan. So what'd you end up having to do for the down payment? I mean, 3.5%, $700,000 loan. You're bringing what, 25, 28 grand to the closing table?
Yeah, it was a little more than that because in New Orleans, the FHA, the maximum you can go for a 4 unit is $650,000, and
Ah,
because the property was 690, so a lot of thing had to be covered by me. So I ended up bringing in 40,000 at closing.
and what Ayush is referencing is so the FHA has loan limits, the max that they'll lend, and this varies, county to county, state to state. So obviously, New York City is going to be very different than San Francisco, which is going to be very different from New Orleans. So even with that max loan amount, you said like, hey, I'm fine putting down more than 3.5% because I know it's such a good deal. Is that
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Cool. So you closed, all 4 units were occupied. I mean, where'd we go from here? I mean, you're closing day one. I mean, the FHA says you have to move in 90 days, or is it 60 days or 90 days? So, I mean, it sounds like you had to give a tenant notice, and this is also in the middle of COVID. I mean, how did that sort of process work out?
Yeah, that was where the real work started for me. The real challenge started. So all the tenants, as I said, has been living over there for at least 2 to 3 years. They're used to it. I individually went and introduced myself, spoke to them, spoke about their plans, spoke about the problems that they think that the property have. Was extremely fair and nice to them. And then I had to tell one of the tenants who was like planning to leave in 2 months anyways, had to tell him that, you know what, because of the FHA loan, I have to move in over here. There's no like personal problems that I have with you. I just have to move in. Um, he was not that happy with it, but there's not a lot he could do. So I had given him a 30-day notice to leave. And then just because we had to do some work in the building, we were walking with the contractors to each unit. And then that tenant had they all had got the notice that we'll be walking with the contractor. So that tenant had locked his door and put a glass table as a trap. So he wasn't around. We knocked on his house. So when we opened the door, the glass table like shattered, and everybody was freaked out as to what happened. His dog ran out, and that was probably the scariest moment of me for me during this entire process of buying and real estate investing. I didn't know what to do. The two contractors were super nice who were with me. They tried to get the dog back. The dog would not come back. I called my handyman at that point to come clean the mess up. But when I called the tenant, he was extremely mad, extremely unhappy. He came back and I waited for him for an hour. He came back and he was shouting and screaming at me in the middle of the street. So, and honestly, as a physician, and what our job is, we don't get these kind of excitement or like reaction from people.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the big moments for me. That was like, okay, now I am actually a real estate investor. Now I'm actually a landlord. I need to learn all these things. I need to understand that there are people's life who are dependent on me. And I am generally a calm person. Being in the emergency room, treating kids every day, a lot of things depend on the physician's calmness over there. So I'm generally a calm person. I handle that situation extremely calmly, but I know inside my body I was like literally shaking. So, anyways, we went back and forth, and then he left after a month. So it was a challenging process, but it happened.
And there's just a couple things I want to call out here. I mean, you took the right steps of like, hey, I'm buying the property. You walked it. You introduced yourself. You were nice. You were approachable. You gave notice, but they did something to put a little trap there for y'all that caused a headache. And then, the dog got out. You got the dog back. You got the mess cleaned up. And, he was already planning on leaving anyways in 2 months. So you just said, hey, can you leave in 30 days? And challenges can happen with any property. I mean, and this is a $700,000 property in an extremely nice area of town, and you still have these challenges. So I love the fact that you stuck with it. I mean, that's sort of a scary first sort of 30 days of being a real estate investor. I mean, already you've gotten like punched in the face a couple of times. It's like, great, you can buy the loan, and then, you can buy the property. Here's the physician's loan. And, oh, by the way, sorry, we're changing our requirements. And then, there's punch one in the face. And then you said, no, I'm not getting knocked down. I'm just going to call, 40, 50 people until I can get a lender to lend to me, and you get it done in time. And now here you are trying to move in, trying to meet the loan requirements. You're giving tenants notice. And then you get, punch two in the face, and, you're still being calm. So I love that fact.
Let me tell you the punch three, which was in the first week. Super short story. First week into buying the house, one of the tenants' bathroom ceiling fell down. Never dealt with it before. I had no idea what's going on. I think I got lucky that it did not fall down in someone's head. But again, something that was like, okay, what have I got myself into? Why can't I just do a physician job and just buy our own house like everybody else does and live a happy
now
life?
It's sort of sounding pretty nice of like, why didn't I just do the single family route? I wouldn't be dealing with this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what was causing the ceiling to fall down? And I'm asking, I know because you and I chat a bunch and have had coffee, but for folks that are listening, why'd the ceiling fall down?
I think there was a big water leak that was going on for years in this property. And it was just really bad. And I think the wood was getting rotted. The ceiling was having mold in it, and there was moisture over there. And I think that's what made it fall down. We realized it more after we did a renovation on one of the units, and we opened the wall up. And my contractor at that time, who opened the wall up, said he's never seen a leak as bad. There was like rain falling between the two bathrooms. So I think there was a big water leak that was going on in the.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy thing happening. So what were your plans for the building? Obviously, you knew you could raise some rents because they were way below market value, but you knew that the property needed some work. So, how'd you sort of lay out your plan? You're going to live in one unit, but what was the plan for the first year or two with the property? What type of work did you initially plan to do? And then let's get into what you've been doing on the property.
Yeah. So one of the things that I saw when I was walking through the property was, how can I forcefully appreciate the property? That was one of the big things that I was learning. And how to make it from a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom to 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. And my goal for the property over the next 1 year of buying was basically, how can I forcefully appreciate it so much that when I'm going to refinance it, I can have like 20 to 30% equity built up. What we did starting December was the unit that I am living in right now. We renovated it. We renovated both the bathrooms. In fact, we added 1 bathroom. We renovated the existing bathroom, moved the washer and dryer, the kitchen, and made it look so nice that when I showed it to people, and they were like, "This is such an expensive property." Now, when I look on Rentometer or anywhere else, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath at my area goes for like $2,200-$2,300.
So that's market rents, and you had tenants paying $1,500. But one thing you skipped over here was they were all 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, but you decided to add a second bathroom in that downstairs unit you were moving into. So what made you say, like, I know you just mentioned you wanted to try to force appreciation to do this like Burr house hack combo, but what made you say like, hey, it's worth the money to add the second bathroom?
Yeah. So what I did was went to Rentometer, looked at the local rents that were going for 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and then 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom. And then we saw the difference in rents were between $300 to $500 for 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom. So if I could spend $10,000 and increase the rent by $400 a month, my return of investment was extremely high, and that's what made me think that instead of just leaving it the way it is, why don't I actually put my money into increasing the property value by just adding another bathroom.
Yeah, I mean, even if you only got like half of that, $200 a month, $2,400 a year. I mean, on a 10 grand investment, that's a 24% return on that money, which is huge. And I mean, this is how, for folks that are listening, find those ways to say, like, is there extra space where I can add an extra bedroom or an extra bathroom to really increase the rents, which then force the appreciation. And when you ran those numbers, it made perfect sense. So yeah, you obviously added the bathroom. So you've got your unit all renovated. You moved in, and sort of now what's on the schedule?
Yeah, so I had the tenant next door move out last week, and on April 1st we start the renovation of that unit as well. We're gonna do very similar work as we did on my unit, and I I want I want new tenants to come in, and I'm actually like advertising it very specifically to physicians, like residents, fellows, medical students. I think they make great tenants, nurses. Um, they they're nice. They work hard, and if I can do something for them and have a nice unit ready, I think that'd be me giving back to the medical community in a way.
Awesome. And what was the tenant in there paying for rent?
She was paying 1375, so she was the
Okay.
lowest in the building, and I mean, to be honest, that unit can be easily rented for 1950 or $2,000 a month. That's a lot of difference. That's a $600 difference. And if I spend like $20,000 on it, that's just a very good return of investment.
Yeah, I mean, you got 7 grand a year difference. That's a stupid return, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I put 20 grand into renovating the unit. I get an extra 7 grand a year. Like, sign me up all day long. So you'll have that one renovated soon. And then, what are you thinking your plans are for the other two units? Are those, and are all the units side by side, or are they top to bottom units for folks that are listening and don't know the property?
So they're top and bottom. So it's a kind of historic property in New Orleans where you have two bottom units, two top units above the bottom units. Um, the plan for the other two units are one of the tenants just re-signed the lease for another year, and I like them a lot. They're perfect. So I want them to stay. The other tenant is actually also moving out at the end of April. And so we are going to go ahead and renovate that unit as well, and then advertise it. And June and July is where people start looking for units to get rented out, like school, colleges, residency, fellowship. So I'm going to try to get place rented out for a little higher than 1,500 that the previous tenant was paying.
Awesome. And so do you think that upstairs, are you going to add a second bathroom in the upstairs? And, you said you want to get a little higher than 1,500. Are you going to try to renovate that one as much and add that second bathroom, or what's sort of the plan for that unit?
Yeah, we're not planning to renovate it that much. The plan is to keep it 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom, update the current bathroom, update the kitchen a little bit. That unit is in pretty good shape. All the units honestly are pretty good shape. Nobody needs to do anything in these units, but they just are in good shape because of the way houses were made back in the days. The wood flooring is like
Yeah.
200 years old and stuff like that. So we're just going to keep it the way it is, just improve the bathroom and improve the kitchen.
Awesome. And, one of the things I want to call out for folks that are listening, this is just because I know the property and I've been over there. So it's actually a raised property. So the crawl space is maybe like 3 feet. So it was really easy for Ayush to get a contractor to come in and add electrical and plumbing for that second bathroom going in downstairs because he didn't have to punch in and open up a bunch of walls and fish wire through. They could run it all underneath the crawl space, which made it a lot easier to add in that second bathroom in there. Otherwise, the price to add the bathroom could have been an extra $2 or $3 grand more. But that's awesome. I mean, so you're going to end up with 3 of the units essentially renovated and brought up to market rents. Obviously, you'll be living in one of them, and then you've got another tenant signed, just renewed for a year. So is this when you're going to do the refinance part of the Burr house hack combo is in the summer once they're all finished and rented?
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I did not even know there's something called Burr till like 2 months ago, I think. And definitely did not know anything about Burr house hack combination, or some people call it Burr hack now. So yeah, plan is to refinance it and repeat it and buy some more properties.
Awesome. I mean, we're going to have to get you to send in a couple of pictures. I mean, because the building is beautiful. So if you're listening, make sure to check out the show notes because, I mean, it's an awesome home in the Garden District. And then what Ayush did for the renovations, I mean, beautiful bathrooms. I sort of feel like your girlfriend might have helped a bit with the design. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they came out pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. She did. I'm not a design person. I just know some numbers and I know medicine, but I'm not a design. I think that's the worst thing you can put me into, trying to find a design for a tile or color for the walls. Yeah, she definitely helped.
Well, she helped you pick out some really great stuff. It's beautiful. So check out the show notes, folks, and we'll put some of those pictures in there. So I mean, you're almost October, November close, so you're halfway through the first year. You're going to try to refinance about the 9-month mark. That'll complete the Burr. Looking back over what you've done so far, I mean, where do you think your biggest mistake was? And like, if you knew what you knew now and you could go back, 9 months ago, what would you have done differently?
I think plan a little better. Although I think we did a good job in jumping into getting the house under contract, we should have done a better due diligence. I got $25,000 in the discount from the seller, but there were times there were opportunities to get more than that. To figure out where the water leak is and to have the seller be like, hey, you need to figure out where the water leak is. Otherwise, I'm going to back out from my contract. I think not to get emotional with the property was extremely important. And I did get emotional. And as I said, I used to live like 3 blocks from here. And I used to walk over here all the time and be like, hey, this is going to be my building. And I think that would be a big learning point for me and for anybody that, at the end of the day, you're going to live over here. You can make it as nice as possible, but you're going to move out of it at some point. And the numbers matter more. So don't get emotional about the property.
Yeah. So, I mean, looking back then, what do you think you did right?
Just taking action. I think that was one of the biggest thing. I am taking one action made me take hundreds of actions after I bought the property, and I've learned so much. And now I know it that if something comes up, I'm not that stressed. I'm not absolutely bothered by it. I would take a step rather than thinking too much over it. So just like investing in it. Maybe it's going to be the worst thing that I ever did, which I know it's not, but just the learning curve has been so steep, so amazing. Just going through this process is great.
Awesome. I mean, and you're obviously investing some money in the property to increase the rents, but I mean, you're essentially, grossing 4,500 and then, you got that mortgage at 4,300. So it makes it easy to invest the money in the property when you have, no housing costs essentially. So, I mean, yeah, I think you're on a good path there. Do you think taking that course with as part of that physician's course, do you think that helped prep you enough, or was that just to like entry level broad of building passive income?
I think it did prep me a little bit. One of the things with that course is we still have a It's a Continuum Facebook community. They have a news section on Kajabi, which they use, and they are always updating stuff on it, which we can go back and watch it. There's always Q&As, and you can ask questions in that group anytime. So it does help because of the connections that you end up making, and everybody's going through the same thing. Uh, Physicians' baseline are like they are very reluctant to spend money where there can be a loss. So they're very risk averse. That's our baseline because, and I think it comes from the fact that it takes us so much time to start earning a decent salary after you become an attending. It takes like 10, 15 years. So I think to be in the community of similar people who think similarly about money or investing is really helpful because we all can say, oh, we all are in the same boat. It's okay. So that has really helped me a lot. But yeah, just doing the thing at that moment of time, like doing the thing in the property, investing, I think that is more than any course that I could have done.
Yeah. I mean, and one more thing I want to touch back on. So why'd you decide to spend money on the course? Because like if you go on Bigger Pockets forums to, Instagram, Facebook, there's always this debate of like, no, don't go spend money on a course. And then there's other folks that say, yes, absolutely. You can get knowledge really quickly. And, instead of going and finding it free online in a million different places, it's all consolidated. I mean, what made you say like, hey, it's worth investing some money in this course?
I think it goes back to lack of education, financial education. I took this course in March of 2020. I did not know about Bigger Pockets till October, November of 2020. So I've never been to Bigger Pockets website. I've never been to their, I never heard a podcast from them. I did not have any friends who were doing real estate in in my group, in my circle. So um, looking back, I think the course was helpful to jumpstart it and to just learn that
Yeah.
people are actually doing it. Um, I, and yeah, if I had to do it again, I probably would do the course. And if somebody told me that, no, don't do the course and go to Bigger Pockets and you can catch up on everything, I think that'd be great as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you said it perfectly is that the course you took jump started you on the path, but you still had to get that firsthand knowledge to learn. I mean, sort of like I would imagine medical school, like you can learn and study as much as you want, but until you actually start practicing that, you got to have that like book smarts and street smarts all melded together to be successful.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the first time I was doing a stitch on a baby, I was so nervous about it. But now we've done hundreds and thousands of that, and it's just muscle memory. The same thing happens with real estate. The first time you're so stressed, but after hundreds of problems, you're like, okay, that's all right. It can be managed.
You mentioning stitching a baby just made me like, oh my goodness, I couldn't do that. And then I remember one of the conversations we had about a contractor, and you're getting all worried. And I was just like, that sounds like a normal contractor. So
Yeah.
it just takes that like routine of doing stuff over and over again and going through it. And you get that like muscle memory on stuff. Ayush, I'm so glad we were able to get you on the show and share your story with us. But before we let you go, we got a set of final questions we like to ask all of our guests. Are you ready for them?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So question number 1, what is your favorite personal finance blog, book, or podcast?
So, personal finance blog, book, or podcast. One of the things that it's more about leadership. Does that fall into it? If I have to,
Yeah.
yeah. So obviously, Rich Dad Poor Dad was a big book for me, which I read. But one of the biggest challenges for me was going through renovations and leading the team. And I have been trying to read a lot of leadership books on it. So one of the books that I have recently read is called The Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko Winnick. It is a great book. I think it has helped me at workplace a lot as well. It talks about how you can be extremely firm at one point, but at the point you have to let people go. And I think that would be one of my top books that I've read recently, that Dichotomy of Leadership.
I'm going to have to put that in the show notes for folks, and that's one I'm going to have to check out. That sounds pretty good. All right, so question number 2, what is your favorite real estate related resource? So blog, book, podcast, whatever it may be, real estate related.
So before Bigger Pockets, I have to give a shout out to Semi-Retired MD, because that's the course that I took and I have a big part of community. But regarding house hacking, Andrew, your podcast is amazing. Like, I've probably heard all of them. So I have to give
I owe you a beer very soon for saying that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. It is a great podcast.
And we'll put the links for the Semi-Retired MD as well in the show notes, so y'all can check them out and see all that if you'll want to do it. All right, so on to question number 3. What's been your favorite travel destination so far?
So, yeah, this was a question that I thought about a lot, because traveling is one of my favorite things to do. Right before COVID, I went to Patagonia. It was a 10-day hike, and it was extremely tough, but it was beautiful. I have to put that as number 1, Patagonia.
Ooh, yeah. All right, so question number 4, what's next on your travel vacation list? So maybe, do you have something short-term planned, working around COVID, and then what might be, big on the list after, things with COVID get a little more settled?
Yeah, I have to say India. I haven't been back home. India is still home for me. I haven't been back home for almost 2 years now. So I think this year, once everything settles down in between June to August, India would be one of the things that I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. All right. So question number 5, what is your biggest bucket list item that you have not accomplished yet?
Okay. I think I have to say learning Spanish. I want to learn Spanish, and it's been like 3, 4, 5 years that I've been thinking about it. I've tried Duolingo. I've tried some other apps, tried to talk to patients. But I really want to learn Spanish. So that would be a big bucket list item for either this year or next year.
I was going to say, you should take a little mini retirement for 6 weeks and go work at a clinic, down in Central South America, and you'll pick up Spanish really quick, and, have lessons in the morning and go volunteer at a clinic or something in the afternoon, and, go hang out at the beach at night and have some fun that way.
Yeah, that'd be ideal. That's so amazing.
Awesome. All right. So the 6th and final question, what is your favorite life hack?
So one of the things that I started doing recently, and it has helped me a lot, is making a calendar and on Google Calendar the week prior for the next week. So I think everybody's life is busy. So is mine. And we can definitely get overwhelmed by so many things that we have to do every day. And that was causing me a little bit of stress. And if something would come up and I was thinking that I have to do that. But what I did was I took 1 week in which I wrote down all the things that I have to do and made a note on that and wrote recurrent tasks to it. And then the Thursday, the week prior, I started making blocks of time that I need to spend either in real estate, either at work, either workout, or anything that was really important to me, and I had to do it. So what happened was, during the week, if something came up, I knew that I had time for that in this block. Kind of helped me focus at work a lot as well, because when I'm at work, I can't do anything real estate or any other stuff. So help me be less distracted at work, less distracted at real estate, be more focused, be more valuable towards my girlfriend, my family. And I went a step further. For the last 1 month, I think, I gave this task to my VA, and my VA makes my calendar. And by Thursday of the week prior, my calendar is ready, which is really helpful for me. That would be my biggest life hack.
That's a killer life hack. Not only planning ahead, but then outsourcing it to a VA to actually make it for you. So really killer. Where can folks learn more about you? Where can they find you? Where's the best place for them to look you up if they want to hear more about your story?
Yeah, so I'm starting. I want to help the residents and the medical community. So, and I know a lot of physicians and medical community do not do house hacking. So I've started an Instagram channel. It's called MD House Hacking, and it's supposed to be educational. I want to share my story over there, and anybody who needs help, whether it's physician or non-physician or non-medical community, I would love to connect, help in whatever way I can.
Awesome. Man, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew.